Hello everyone, Stepan here. I'll go over a game played between two of the greatest legends in female chess in history, Hou Yifan and Judit Polgár. And both of them probably need no introduction, but just a few interesting details. Hou Yifan was born in '94, so she is 24 years old at the moment. At the age of 14, she became the first female player, the youngest female player ever to get the grandmaster title. And at 13, she won her women's grandmaster title, which has a lower rating prerequisite. So at 14, she was already a grandmaster. And at 12, she was the first player ever to participate in the Women's World Championship, and at 16 she won her first female World Championship, and she actually won two more since then. As of 2015, she is the highest rated woman in the world, so an amazing achievement. And her opponent in this game is Judit Polgár, so I think she is the synonym for female chess, and she is actually one of the strongest players in history in both sexes, in both genders. And she was one of the most amazing things about her career is that she gained her title at 15, her grandmaster title, and she was actually the first person to break Bobby Fischer's record, which he held since the 60s, because Bobby Fischer was the youngest grandmaster in history, and Judit Polgár was the first person to break that. So at 15 in 1989 she became a grandmaster, and since then, up until 2015, she was the highest rated woman in the world. And the person who took over was none other but than Hou Yifan. And another thing about Judit Polgár is that she is the only woman, and that still held this record, the only woman ever to go over 2700 FIDE. So the only woman ever to break the 2700 record and to become a super grandmaster, which is a nickname for people over 2700. So they've both had amazing careers, and this game was their clash in the Tradewise Gibraltar tournament in 2012. At the time, Judit Polgár was still an active player. She stopped playing actively in 2014, and Hou Yifan was just starting to rise, and she was 18. And she was 26.05 at the moment. Judit was 27.10, so Judit was 100 points higher. And this video will be the first in the series about the greatest players of the 21st century, not born but who've been active in the 21st century, of the younger generation of grandmasters. And I will start with Hou Yifan. So in this game, Hou Yifan had the white pieces. She opened with pawn to e4. We have the Sicilian by Judit Polgár, knight to f3, e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight c6, knight c3, and a6. We have the Taimanov Sicilian, or the Paulsen variation, Taimanov Sicilian. And now they will play a theoretical line for another 10 moves, and this just goes to show that Judit Polgár was so well theoretically prepared, even though she had a reputation of the best female player. She had already achieved a lot of things, but she kept studying, and this line wasn't as popular at the time. It was actually, last time it was played so in depth was in the 80s, and both players knew that line perfectly. So the game continues with bishop to e2, developing, knight g to e7, bishop f4, knight to g6, challenging the bishop, knight takes c6, b takes c6, and bishop to d6. This is all theory, and the position is, in theory, equal. The engines would say that it's slightly better for white, but both sides have something to play for, and there are a lot of imbalances in the position which really make it interesting. So we have bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, queen to e7, of course trying to challenge the queen in order to be able to castle or to develop further. Castles queenside, queen takes d6, rook takes d6, king to e7 attacking the rook, rook h to d1, knight to f4, bishop to f3. This is all still theory, and rook to b8. And in this position there is only one more move of theory, rook 6 to d2. And this is the beginning of the game. This was all preparation by both players, probably not for this exact game, but this is the line they knew in advance, and this was all played at tempo without thinking. And this is where the game starts. And if you look at the pawn structure, white has a slightly better pawn structure in this position, because black has these pawns in the center, which, even though it's a common rule that it's good having pawns in the center, Black has an isolated pawn on the king side, on the queen side, I'm sorry, and white has completely untouched pawn islands, which will actually be much better in the future, in theory. So the game continues with g5 here, a hyper-aggressive move by Judit Polgár, but she is the stronger player and she is playing against her biggest rival at the time, the young Hou Yifan, and she wants to be aggressive probably and show who is the boss. So knight to a4, which is a great move, covering the c5 square and probably aiming to enter b6 if the possibility arises, perhaps c4, c5, and then knight to b6 would be a perfect outpost for the knight. But the knight on c5 is also amazingly strong and striking at the d7 square. d5 now by Judit, once again an aggressive move and the correct move, breaking through in the center, challenging white's pawns and trying to create a passed pawn in the center of the board. g3, first chasing the knight away, knight to g6, and now rook to e1, not giving white that many options, because now if white takes here, then black would of course be able to capture only with the c pawn and not with the d pawn, because the rook is pinning the pawn to the king. So a good move, a good tactical move by Hou Yifan. King to f6, Judit of course sees that, gets away from the tactical threats immediately. Bishop to h5, challenging the knight, because in these positions, if you look at the pawn structure is completely closed and there isn't much that these bishops can do in the position. And if you notice the scope of black's bishop, it's only 2 squares, and the white bishop isn't that active either, and it doesn't have that many possibilities in the position. So the knight is definitely a much stronger piece, and it's already controlling more squares than the bishops. So yeah, exchanging the bishop for the knight would definitely favor white in this position. Here Judit reacts with rook to b4, attacking white's knight on a4. Knight goes to c3, and now d4. This was the first major mistake in the game, because actually it gives white a lot of initiative, even though it seems to be cramping white's position. It's a bad move. So after d4, Hou Yifan is able to play tactically now with e5 check. First luring the knight to take the e5 pawn. The knight has to take, there isn't too many options. Knight takes e5, and now knight to e4 check. And this is the point of the move e5. e5 was vacating the square e4 for the knight, because had the knight retreated to either d1 or e2, it would have been much inferior. And this temporary pawn sacrifice gave the knight the best square on the board, and now it will be able to jump into d6, into c5. It will control and attack g5, and this is such a great conception by Hou Yifan, and I'm sure Judit Polgár must have missed it with when she pushed d4, because you don't actually consider sacrificing a pawn that lightly in this position, especially a central e4 pawn. But anyway, it was a mistake, and Hou Yifan punished it immediately with e5 check. And after knight takes e5, knight to e4 check. Now the king has to retreat. It would be very unwise to venture into f5, because the checkmate would come in a few moves. So king to e7, and now knight takes g5, gaining back her pawn. And the mistake here in this position by Judit Polgár, once again, she plays h6. Much better was f6, keeping the pawns connected in the center and controlling a few more key squares, and of course defending the knight on e5, which is the main issue, because the knight is actually attacked. So it would have been a multi-purpose move, because this way she would be attacking white's knight, defending her own, and now she's simply not defending her own knight, so a mistake. And this allows Hou Yifan to play another tactic and actually go a pawn up, and this move h6 was the blunder of the game, I'd say. Judit Polgár might have been able to survive had she played f6, despite activating white's knight in such a good way and weakening her d4 pawn. So after h6, Hou Yifan plays a fairly simple tactic. Knight takes c6, and now whichever way black takes, the knight is dropping. If Judit Polgár takes with the king, then simply f4 will attack the knight for the second time and pin it, or even just rook d2 e2, and that's it. So the knight is lost anyway, and she takes with the bishop, and after bishop takes, simply rook takes e5, grabbing the piece. And if you count the pawns now, white has 6 pawns, and black has 5. But what's even more important, look at the pawn structure. Black has horrible pawns, an isolated a pawn, an isolated f pawn, an isolated h pawn, and these two connected pawns which aren't really going anyway. So this game is strategically, positionally, and even materially winning for white now, and it all came from Judit's mistake of first playing d4 and then playing h6, which is an inconceivable mistake. Actually, this move h6 is just completely illogical. So anyway, after knight takes e6, bishop takes e6, rook takes e5, Judit now tries rook to d8, threatening perhaps d3 in some positions, but Hou Yifan is now quick to convert on this completely winning game, and she plays first she plays f4, solidifying the rook to b5, doubling rooks, not giving the opportunity to Judit Polgár to isolate her pawn on e5, king to f6, bishop to f3, and now just a conversion, and a highly precise one by Hou Yifan. In this position, okay, she's a pawn up, she's better, but it's easy to slip up, and all of her moves were absolutely engine strength from here on until the end of the game. c5 by Judit, advancing her pawns, her only two connected pawns, a4, forcing the rook away, rook to b4, rook takes c5, exchanging pawns, rook takes a4, and now b3. This is an important move because if black checks from a1, then the king can go to b2 and attack the rook, gain a tempo. So rook to b4, bishop to e4, defending c2 in advance, because there are some positions in which it could be problematic. For example, if you imagine the rook moved from c5, if it moved anywhere, then rook to c8 would be extremely strong for black, and black could either be winning in this position. Bishop to g4, attacking the rook on e2, rook e1, rook to d6, a pretty useless move, bishop to d3, solidifying the position even further. And you can notice how Hou Yifan is approaching this game, and she's still one pawn up, and she isn't in a hurry to improve her position. She's just simply making sure that black has no counterplay, so relinquishing black of any attacking possibilities before advancing and improving further. This is a very instructive middle game, and perhaps even an endgame by now. Bishop to d7, Judit just has no moves. Rook e to e5, doubling on the 5th rank, bishop e6, king to d2, getting her last piece closer to the attack, and now try to find the plan for black. Black is only a pawn down, but the position is completely busted because there is nothing Judit Polgár can do. Hou Yifan played just a perfect game. Okay, Judit gave her a chance to be a pawn up, but the way Hou Yifan exploited it is remarkable, without a single mistake. Rook b to b5, rook a5, attacking the a pawn, rook b c6, rook a4, attacking d4 in this position, rook b6, rook to e4, now attacking d4 twice, and this is just game over. Bishop to f5, and rook takes d4, rook to e6, bishop c4, of course refusing an exchange of bishops, because this bishop is key to defending e2, because if the e2 square is covered and the rook can even get to e2, then white has no worries. White doesn't have to defend from anything. Rook e to c6, rook a5, attacking the bishop, bishop to c8, bishop to d3, bishop e6. Poor Judit Polgár has no moves in this position. Rook to d8, bishop to c8, rook a to d5, bishop e6, just repeating moves, rook to h5, now attacking the h6 pawn, which is really hard to defend, king to g7, and now f5 in this position. And here Judit Polgár gave up. This is just too much. The position is now almost completely over, and she can't even maneuver her pieces anymore. She has no time to do that. And okay, I hope you liked this game. I just wanted to show one of the biggest clashes between two female players in history, and this game is very instructive because it shows how well prepared both players were, and it shows what an amazing chess player Hou Yifan actually is and was when she was just 18, and of course she's much stronger today. And I'm going to cover a couple of her games in the months to come, just to show her progress and her development and how she improved over time in the last 6 years. Okay, everybody, thanks very much for watching and stay tuned for more chess. Goodbye. Cheers.